statement true or not?
What I would say is that we're focused on the two cartels, who we believe are doing exactly what you say. They are responsible for the fentanyl coming
Let me
into
ask
the
you
United
again.
States.
If President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and/or American law enforcement officials to come into Mexico to work with the same in Mexico, we could stop the cartels, could we not?
Senator, I believe this is a whole of government effort and has to be, including whether it's the military, us, FBI,
Now,
and others.
Madam Administrator, I've listened to you here for almost an hour telling us how bad fentanyl is. Thank you for that, but we know.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you a third time. If President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and/or law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with the same in Mexico, we could stop the cartels. Isn't that a fact?
Okay, did you just see that? Because I need a second. What you just watched was Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana refusing to let DEA Administrator Ann Milgram off the hook. And honestly, good. Someone had to do it. Before I get into my full reaction, let me say this. I don't care what side of the political aisle you sit on. When American sons and daughters are dying from fentanyl every single day, politics should go out the window. Senator Kennedy clearly agrees. He asked the same straightforward question 4 times and Ann Milgram dodged it every single time. The question was simple. If President Lopez Obrador invited American military and law enforcement into Mexico to work alongside Mexican forces, could we stop the cartels? Yes or no? That's it. And somehow, the head of a major federal agency could not answer it directly. We're going to watch the full video together right now, and then I'm coming back with everything I have to say about this. If you're new here, hit subscribe because this is exactly the kind of content we get into on this channel. Real talk, no fluff. Let's get into it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Administrator, the two cartels that are sending fentanyl into the United States are located in Mexico, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
And isn't it a fact that we could stop those cartels in their tracks if President Lopez Obrador would invite American military and/or law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with his military and law enforcement personnel?
Senator, what I would say from my purview as the head of the DEA...
But is my statement true or not?
What I would say is that we're focused on the two cartels, who we believe are doing exactly what you say. They are responsible for the fentanyl coming into the United States.
If President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and/or American law enforcement officials to come into Mexico to work with the same in Mexico, we could stop the cartels, could we not?
Senator, I believe this is a whole of government effort and has to be, including whether it's the military, us, FBI, and others.
Madam Administrator, I've listened to you here for almost an hour telling us how bad fentanyl is. Thank you for that, but we know.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you a third time. If President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and/or law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with the same in Mexico, we could stop the cartels. Isn't that a fact?
So, Senator, I can speak to the law enforcement side of this, and you just mentioned law enforcement. I believe that this is vital for both Mexico and the United States. Mexicans are dying as well, as we showed in the Chapitos.
Well, then why don't we stop them?
So
would it help? Let me ask you a fourth time. Would it help if President Lopez Obrador, I don't think it's a complicated question, Madam Administrator. You're asking us for more money every year, more money, and it gets worse, worse, and worse. You know, in the real world, the nitty-gritty of the real world, when you fail, you get fired. In government, when you fail, you get more money because obviously you need it. Now, let me ask you a fourth time. If President Lopez Obrador, and I'd appreciate an answer, if President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and/or law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with his, we could stop the cartels, couldn't we?
I believe, Senator, that we can stop the cartels.
Okay. Have you made that suggestion to President Biden?
If I could, I believe that we can stop the cartels by
Have you made that suggestion to President Biden?
Senator, I have been very vocal in the whole of government setting on the importance of fentanyl and all of us using every single effort and authority that we have.
Why hasn't President Biden done it? I mean, this is the way the American people, whose sons and daughters are dying, look at it. Our economy is $23 trillion. Mexico's economy is $1.3 trillion. Ours is 18 times bigger. We buy $400 billion every year from Mexico. Without the people of America, Mexico, figuratively speaking, would be eating cat food out of a can and living in a tent behind an outback. So why don't you and the president, embarrassing no one, get on the phone and call President Lopez Obrador and make him a deal he can't refuse to allow our military and our law enforcement officials to go into Mexico and work with his to stop the cartels? Why don't you do that?
Senator, what I am doing every single day is working with the incredible men and women of DEA who are risking their lives across 334 offices worldwide.
And I appreciate that, but you're not doing what would work. Why won't you do what will work?
Senator, we are...
Why don't you call the president this afternoon and say, Mr. President, let's call President Lopez Obrador privately and make him a deal he can't refuse. Because we both know that President Lopez Obrador has neither the ability nor the will to stop the cartels. But yet we go along and pretend that they're our friends, and Mexico is our friend. But he has criminal organizations that are killing our people, and you know how to stop it, and the president does, and you're not doing it.
Senator, we are working every day to stop it.
But you're not doing what would stop it.
We are transforming, and we are working in countless ways across the globe to do what needs to be done for the American people. And there is nothing that the men and
when
women...
it's important to you, you make it happen. When it's not important to you, you make an excuse.
All right, we just watched the whole thing. I want to be fair here, but I also want to be honest because this deserves it. Senator John Kennedy walked into that hearing with one goal: get a straight answer on behalf of every American family that has lost someone to fentanyl. What did he get? Bureaucratic fog. Carefully worded non-answers that sound like something but mean nothing. Now I want to talk about Ann Milgram for a second. I don't doubt the DEA workforce works hard. Senator Kennedy even acknowledged that. But appreciation for the workforce is not the same as accountability for leadership. Ann Milgram is the head of the DEA, and at some point the person at the top has to own the results, or the lack of them. Senator Kennedy put it perfectly. In the real world, when you fail, you get fired. In government, when you fail, you get more money. That right there is the frustration millions of Americans feel every single day. Now, the economic leverage argument is where Senator Kennedy really got me thinking. The U.S. economy is $23 trillion. Mexico's is $1.3 trillion. America buys $400 billion worth of goods from Mexico every year. The point Senator Kennedy is making is that America holds serious cards in this relationship. The idea that President Lopez Obrador cannot be persuaded into allowing a joint operation on Mexican soil, given all of that leverage, is genuinely hard to accept. I understand diplomacy is complicated and sovereignty is a real thing. But when criminal organizations are shipping a poison that kills tens of thousands of Americans every year, the sovereignty argument starts to feel a little hollow. And that brings me to the central point. The one Ann Milgram could never quite bring herself to say out loud, even though she basically admitted it was true. She said she believes the cartels can be stopped. She said it herself. And yet it's not happening. So the question Senator Kennedy was asking, the question we should all be asking, is why? If we know what would work, why aren't we doing it? And Milgram kept saying the DEA works every single day. I believe her. But being busy and doing what would actually solve the problem are two completely different things. You can work hard and still be going in the wrong direction. What Senator Kennedy was calling for was bold, direct leadership at the executive level. Pick up the phone. Call President Lopez Obrador. Use the economic relationship as leverage. Get American personnel into Mexico working alongside Mexican forces to take these cartels apart. Is that oversimplified? Maybe. But the principle behind it is sound, and more importantly, it reflects the urgency the moment demands. Because here's what nobody in that hearing room seemed willing to say clearly. President Lopez Obrador has shown time and again that stopping the cartels is simply not his priority. Senator Kennedy said it plainly. Lopez Obrador has neither the ability nor the will. And yet the official position of the U.S. government is to treat Mexico like a cooperative partner while Americans keep dying. That disconnect is maddening. The last line of that exchange is the one that stuck with me. Senator Kennedy looked at Ann Milgram and said, "When it's important to you, you make it happen. When it's not, you make an excuse." That is the most accurate description of failed leadership I have heard in a long time, and it deserves to be heard in every government building in Washington. Senator Kennedy did his job in that hearing room. He asked the hard question, refused to accept the runaround, and spoke for families who don't have a seat at that table. Whether you agree with his proposed solution or not, he showed up with purpose, and Ann Milgram left without giving the American people the answer they deserved. That's my take. Drop yours in the comments. I want to know what you thought watching this. Did Senator Kennedy go too far? Not far enough. Let's talk about it. And if this video gave you something to think about, please share it, because this conversation needs to be a lot louder than it is. See you in the next one.